Hey Rebel, welcome to Untoxify Your Relationship. Here we will talk about all things healthy and how to get that toxic mess out of you and your partnership. I'm your host, Melissa Webb, a practicing licensed mental health therapist with 10 years experience. I've been on a journey encouraging women to throw the middle finger up at society and to become a rebel, to go against the grain of who and what you are supposed to be and grow into what God has created you to be. And I do this by teaching them skills to cultivate stronger relationships through healthy theology and mental health practices. All right, let's go ahead and hop into it. Hey y'all, it's episode 11, and today we're going to discuss the top 3 red flags that you should not ignore. So if you've been dating, you know about red flags. That is when someone is displaying some behaviors and you just like, ooh, should I continue with this person? I am in the dating process and I see a lot of red flags from dating profiles to going on a first date. Recently had a first date and all the red flags were there, and hence why I did not continue with this person. One of the red flags was he ended up knowing my ex, which is fine, but he spent like an hour talking about my ex and wanted to know more about my ex than he wanted to know about me. The other red flag was he was late, which is also fine because I kind of got there a little early. But he was late and he wanted me to meet him outside and walk him inside. It was weird. And the other red flag was when we were leaving, I gave him a hug and he ended up groping me like right outside of his car. Needless to say, I did not call this man back and I did not ignore the red flags. Previous people who I've dated definitely ignored red flags, but me being older, wiser, and more mature, definitely will not be ignoring red flags anymore. Because when you ignore red flags, it will definitely lead to heartbreak. And I believe that's what happened in previous relationships. When I ignored the red flags, they all ended in heartbreak. So we don't want that. We don't want heartbreak. Although I know a breakup can be tough. However, if you see the red flags or the patterns before you get hot and heavy and into a really long-term relationship, the heartbreak won't be as bad if you're breaking up after 3 months rather than breaking up after a 5-year-long toxic relationship. So today, we're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about what are red flags, the top 3 red flags, and what to do when you see red flags in your relationship. What you might be asking, what are red flags? So they are signs that the person probably can't have a healthy relationship and proceeding down the road together will be emotionally dangerous. That goes back to ignoring red flags will lead to heartbreak. Just note that some red flags don't show up right away. Like on my date that I described earlier, they showed up in 2 hours. And so I was like, yes, don't have to continue. Other red flags, they show up later on in the relationship. So it might not be obvious at first. And we're going to discuss some in the top 3 where they can show up later on in the relationship. So we know red flags, they're a signal to stop. So you have like red stop sign, red traffic light, red caution tape, all those are things to stop. Stop before going through an intersection or stop before you cross this tape. We also see red flags in sports, like red cards in soccer, and we have a red flag in the NFL, which is a signal to stop the play so we can go ahead and look at the replay. But they all mean to stop before proceeding. Ignoring them usually means that you're going to put yourself in danger. If you ignore a red light or a red stop sign and you just proceed through the intersection without looking, you're putting yourself in danger because you can cause a crash, you can hit a person. So a lot of different things can happen if you do not stop at these red stop signs or red traffic lights. Since red flags can show up later in a relationship, people are already invested. So I think that's a lot of times why people fly through these red stop signs or red lights, because they're like, I'm invested it may be something to Steve Harvey's 90-day waiting period. Because some of these red flags show up later, you would then have the opportunity to know within 3 months of, okay, is this guy consistent? Is he showing me red flags? Is he showing me this? Is he showing me that? Before you give up the cookies. When you give up the cookies, it's like, I'm invested. I'm invested sexually. I'm invested physically. I'm invested emotionally. I also might invest it in your time and in money. All these things are probably reasons why people ignore red flags. And I get it. I've been there. I have ignored the red flags because I have engaged in, sex or money or whatever. And I'm like, I'm invested. So why would I leave this person? Let's just see what happens. I think a lot of times people run through red flags because of that. But we all know that we should not ignore red flags because they would end up having long-term emotional damage if we were to continue. So what are the top 3 red flags? The first one is abuse of any kind. First, I'm going to talk about verbal, physical, and emotional abuse. These are dangerous behaviors and they are an immediate red flag. If a person is showing verbal, physical, or emotional abuse towards you, usually means that they have a really hard time regulating their emotions. And if you see this in any relationship, you need to remove yourself immediately. Like, just run for the hills and get out as soon as you can. Because staying in that, again, those dangerous behaviors, anything can happen to you, and we don't want nothing to happen to you, so get out. Now, when it comes to substance abuse, that is when your partner uses substances in excess, which means that they may have an addiction. So the question is, should you leave your partner if they have an addiction? The answer is maybe. I think if your partner recognizes that they have a problem and they go get treatment and they're doing the work, they're going to therapy, you see the changes, then if you want to stick by them, feel free. If they don't see that they have a problem and they continue to just destroy everything around them because of their addiction, I would say leave, right? But the decision is ultimately up to you, and you decide if you want to stick by your partner or not. I would say if they don't see that they have a problem and they continue to destroy everything around them, that's immediately go, run to the hills, get out, and run as fast as you can. If they're working on it, that's a decision that you will have to make on your own. The second red flag is manipulating behaviors. And there's 3 things under this that I'm going to talk about. The first one is love bombing. And love bombing is a tactic in which someone bombs you with extreme displays of attention and affection with the intent to manipulate or control you. This can lead to gaslighting. So love bombing usually happens in the beginning of the relationship. This is when the relationship moves really fast. In your mind, you're like, this person really likes me and they're going above and beyond to do things for me. When in actuality, it is the illusion of someone liking you a lot. As a matter of fact, it can be very overwhelming, especially if this person is calling and texting you all day, giving you too many compliments, and is going above and beyond, like giving you a key to their home after 3 weeks of knowing them. And then on top of that, it can become very inconsistent. So for the first couple of weeks, they can be all in your face, and then once they get what they want, then it's like, oh, okay, whatever. The emotional connection is very inconsistent, and it doesn't match up with what you want, because you want someone who's consistent and stable, not inconsistent and doing things just for their benefit. Love bombing also happens after a breakup or after a really bad argument. Promises are made that they are going to do better. They shower you with gifts and love and affection, and then everything's great for a couple of weeks. And then something happens, either something triggers them, and then they end up going right back to the belittling or manipulative or mean tactics they were doing beforehand. And then you guys break up and the cycle continues. Within the cycle is the promise to change, and change never happens. And this is when you need to get out, because the cycle will continue until you end it. The other person's never going to end their cycle because, one, they don't even know that they're doing it. You recognize it, you don't like it. The only way the cycle's going to end is if you walk out of that relationship. So that is a huge red flag if you see any toxic cycles happening within your relationship. And the last manipulative behavior is gaslighting. Gaslighting is when a person says and or does things to make you question your own sanity. This is emotional abuse. The goal with this manipulation tactic is to have power and control over you. You start to question everything that's going on in your relationship and even questioning if you're crazy. I've been gaslit before in a relationship. I remember telling the guy, I was like, hey, did you say XYZ? And he was like, no, I didn't say that, even though I had a text message to prove it. Showed him the text message and he was like, oh, I never said that. I'm like, dude, like, this is our text thread. Like, what are you talking about? And he like, no, that's not me. I don't know what you're talking about. You know, me being me, I was like, wait, am I tripping? This is the right text thread, right? So it was one of them things where I had to question myself of like, am I tripping? Did Apple mess something up with the text thread? Knowing good and well that this man was just lying. The third red flag is if he doesn't or she doesn't have any friends. If they're struggling to build relationships with other people, then they're probably going to struggle to build a relationship with you. Inquire why they are struggling to build relationships with other people. If they deflect responsibility or don't take accountability and it's all the other person's fault, run for the hills, get out as soon as you can. This also means that they're going to rely on you for all their support because they don't have any friends. You don't want to be the sole person that they rely on. This means that they will take up a lot of your time and the expectation would be that you will help them with everything. The relationship can then really become codependent. So we don't want to be codependent. We want to be interdependent. And interdependent is when, you know, you all can still come together as a couple and you all have separate lives outside of each other. When you're codependent, your lives and everything just depend on each other. And that can become a lot of pressure to be someone's everything. You're not built in that way to be someone's everything. If that happens, you need to get out and run as fast as you can. So what do we do when we see red flags? Because you can notice it and you could be in your head like, ooh, there might be a red flag. And then you might not know what to do afterwards. So one thing you can do, and what I'm going to stress that you do, is communicate to your partner. Especially if this is like in the beginning. Because you all are getting to know each other. Sometimes quirks can be assumed that they're red flags and sometimes they're not. Saying things to your partner like, I noticed this. Like if you see something or you see like a little pattern happening, like, hey, I noticed XYZ when this happens. Another thing you can say is, I don't like it when. So they're doing things that you don't like. Let's say like excessively drinking, like on dates and getting drunk. I don't like it when you get drunk. You know, you're mean and you're belligerent and I don't like that. And then see where that conversation goes. And then also, I feel anxious or sad when you do XYZ. Let them know how you feel and then setting your boundaries and setting any boundaries that may be appropriate. Now, if they ignore your boundaries, like they run over them, they don't care about your boundaries, again, get out and run as fast as you can out of that relationship. If they dismiss any of your feelings or any of your thoughts or any of those sentences that I named earlier, they dismiss it and just say, oh, you're crazy, you're tripping, run as fast as you can. Even their answers can be red flags. You have the power to end the relationship, and I would say don't ignore red flags. As I heard say, don't dip the red flags in bleach and make them pink, okay? So, or don't try to color them a different color. You know, red flags are red flags, and they're there for a reason. They're telling you to stop. Don't go, just stop and get out. Pay attention to what's happening in the relationship and continue to move on. There are other men in the sea or women. Like, this ain't the only person. So it's okay to leave this relationship and go find one that actually works for you. That's all I got. Thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. Again, new episodes drop every Monday. Share, like, subscribe, share with your people, your mama, your sister, your cousin, your uncle, and them. And as always, I will see you next time. Peace. Thank you for listening. Go ahead and share this episode with your family and friends. Don't forget to take the quiz on my website to figure out which Beyonce song matches your toxic trait. Go ahead and check it out at the-revolution.com. That's THE-REBELUTION.com. Thanks, and see you next time.